What's up YouTube? It's Brandon from Tattooing 101 and today we're on our final video of our shading tutorial series. In week 1, we went over the basics of shading, including shading techniques, the needles that I use, and the machines. Week 2 was about practicing whip shading and pendulum shading and how to do it correctly. And then in week 3, we went on to stipple shading and how to use a liner to do shading to make the stipple tattoo technique. And if you haven't checked that out yet, I recommend checking out the first 3 before jumping on this, because we're building off of every video and I'm going to be using every technique we learned throughout the past 3 videos in this video. If you missed any of them, pause this video and in the description below there will be the links for all 3 videos that you could check out before going on to this one. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the 4th video in the shading tutorial series. As you can see here, I prepared the design a little bit differently. I've added the stencil and the shading marks to where we're going to put shading in the actual design. So it'll make it a whole lot easier for you to be able to see where the shading should be. So if you lined the tattoo, what I did, because your stencil rubs off completely, I just go back with a marker and just mark with dots where my shading areas can be. So this is something that you could do on your designs as well. Now, if you're working on an actual client, the stencil stays a lot better on human skin. So this is something that you don't have to worry about if you're actually tattooing on an actual client. So for this tattoo, I'm going to be working with a bug pin 10 gauge 27 curved mag. And then for the stippling part, I'm going to be using a 10 gauge bug pin 5 round liner. And I'm going to be able to do this whole design with these 2 cartridges. And if you would like to learn how and where to put your shading in a tattoo design, check out our video, Tattoo Shading Guide for Shadows. It'll break down everything that I'm about to show. So now let's get into the design. First off, I'm going to start out with the stippling. I'm going to be using my Bishop wand shader and I'm going to run it on 4.5 volts. So I'm going to start out with just my black dynamic ink. And I'm going to work up my tones with my stippling with just my black first. So doing pendulum shading, working back and forth. And for this part, I'm just following my shading lines and just building up my tones by going back and forth and doing some cross hatching in some areas to make it darker. Now remember, from the other video, the slower your hand speed is, the closer the dots are going to be, so the darker it's going to look. And the faster your hand speed is, the further apart the dots are going to be, and it's going to look lighter to the eye. So you can see with these shading marks, it makes it a whole lot easier to kind of understand exactly where everything needs to go, so there's no guesswork. The thing with stippling is it takes a really long time, because with a mag you're using a ton of different needles to go over an area which is more surface area, so you could really saturate a nice big area quickly. But with stipple shading, you're going over an area multiple times and just building everything up, so it takes time, so just stay consistent, don't rush, or it'll end up making the tattoo not look as good as it can be. You want all the dots to be consistent, or you'll end up having lines in some areas or dots that don't look as smooth as they can. So just make sure whenever you're working in this style that your hand speed is staying the same, unless you're wanting to go a little bit faster and have a lighter area. So for the darker areas, we're just going to put the dots really close together, slowing down our hand speed, and you can see that it fills in the area and makes it darker. So now we can go into our 3 drops mixed with witch hazel or distilled water, depending on what you want to use. And this is going to be our gray wash to just smooth out some of these dots and create some different tones. Alright, now I'm going to slow down my hand speed and be able to do some little effects of some blood in veins in the eye. You can see if I go really slow, it is able to line. So that's why whenever we are doing stipple shading, you know, we're working with a fast hand speed, because if we go too slow, it'll just make lines right like that. So now that our stippling is done for the design, we could pull out our 27 curve mag, that is 10 gauge, and start doing all of the mag shading and the whip and pendulum shading with a mag. And also before we start, we're going to turn our machine back up to an operating speed of about 7.5 with a mag, and we could get started. So first off, I'm just going to do some shading going into these just to show the depth. I'm not shading the design, I'm just going right where the outside moves into the eye, just to make it look like it's sunken back in. Because I'm using two different styles to kind of push these two designs apart. Right here I'm just working on whip shading. I'm not going back, I'm just going from the line, then whipping the design out. Okay, now that we're done with the inside, we could start working on the outside. So I always start with my darkest areas, and then I'll work up with my gray wash. Some people like to work with their lightest and then work their way darker. It just depends on, you know, what you're most comfortable with. I always like to get all my dark areas in, and then I'll build off top of that. So right here I'm starting to do my pendulum shading, just going back and forth. So you can see here. So right here I'm just using the corner of my mag to be able to get into this hard to reach area, so I could still use a big mat and get my smooth transitions in there. So just holding the corner of it so I'm not letting all my needles touch this area will help so it doesn't get overworked. So now that we pretty much went through all the techniques in the first 3 videos, we're just pretty much in this one getting comfortable using the mag. You know, getting transitions that are longer and just getting really fluent working your mag back and forth, or just going perfectly up to these lines and being able to whip them out. This is the main focus whenever you are practicing with this video. So now we're almost done with our black sections. Right when we get done with these two leaves, we can move on to our gray wash, which is still 3 drops. If I was doing this on an actual client, I would be setting up 10 drops, 8 drops, 6 drops, 3 drops. But because this is on fake skin, all of the tones go in super dark. So all of the darker tones are pretty much not needed because the 3 drops going to go into the fake skin dark already. So now we have the basics of all the shading done with all my black. I could just go in with my gray wash, which is 3 drops. And what I'm going to do is just smooth out all of the shading I already started on the design. So I'm not pressing super hard here. I'm just very lightly going over top of what I already did, and then I'll do some cross hatching to help blend it out even more. And you can see it leaves for a really nice smooth transition. So now we can clean off the whole design and see the final outcome. So that's the completed tattoo. We've used all the techniques we've learned throughout the other 3 shading series tutorial videos, and we're able to complete an awesome design with 2 different styles of shading. To recap, you could see here that this is where I put in some of the whip shading on the outside going in around this to create depth, and I also used my pendulum shading to create the smooth shading in the leaves. And then on the inside, what we did is went in with our stipple shading to create a different effect on the inside of the triangle, just to make them look apart. If you enjoyed how to learn how to shade in this tutorial series, you might find the Artist Accelerator program beneficial. Inside, we have over 500 videos explaining literally everything you need to know to become a professional tattoo artist. These videos cover not only shading, but everything from sanitation, from tattoo setup, to making designs, pretty much everything you would need to know. So check out the Artist Accelerator program. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.